So we have taken a look at the tan function or the tangent function, and I'm going to often shorten it just to tan. And when it comes to looking at right angle triangles, in this lesson here, we're going to take a look at the sine and cosine functions. Sine and cosine work very similar to tan, and you're going to find them on your calculator right about in the same place that you're going to find the tangent function. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit just to show you on your calculators. Okay, here's my calculator at least. You'll notice that right here I have sin, cos, tan. Okay, all three in a row, and yours are going to be somewhere very close to each other as well. And so it'll be important that you find where yours are so you can use them. And we'll talk a little bit about how we use them as well. First things first, let's take a look at the notes here. The tangent function, or tan function, works really well when we're dealing with the opposite and adjacent sides. Adjacent sides, there we go. Okay, so of a triangle. So when we have the opposite and adjacent sides of a triangle, we can use our tangent function, which is perfect. Now, when the hypotenuse is given or needed, then a second step is used to solve, at least if we are only using our tangent function. So if we are given the hypotenuse and one of the sides, we can then solve for the third side using Pythagorean theorem, then use that answer to solve for an angle. Being able to solve questions with the fewest steps means a more accurate answer. What that means is that we want to try to find a way to not have to do two steps, we only want to do one step. We'll go through multi-step questions later on as well again, but we want to try to find ones where we only have to do one step. Now in trigonometry, we have three functions with right angle triangles, and I've showed them to you on your calculator, and we have the other names up here as well. We've already learned the tangent function, and now we're going to go through the sine and the cosine function. Now these ones, again, we shorten the name as well, but it is sine and cosine. So it's very important that we remember those names. It's not sin and cos, even though that might be the shorthand for it. The sine function, okay, or sin, which obviously we call it sine, so let's make sure we call it sine function, is also a ratio. It's a ratio just like tangent function is, except that this is a ratio between the opposite side to the hypotenuse. This is where we deal with the hypotenuse. Now our function that we have here, if we put it in there, is going to be the opposite side over the hypotenuse. There's our ratio. Okay, so just like we had a ratio with our tangent function, we also have a ratio with our sine function, and that is between the opposite and the hypotenuse. And again, we're going to use the sine button on our calculators to solve those questions, just like we use the tangent button on our calculators to solve tangent questions. The cosine function, on the other hand, okay, now you might be able to guess already, we have the opposite and hypotenuse, we have the opposite and adjacent. The only other ones we need here is we're going to compare the adjacent side, and again the hypotenuse. So now we have all three pieces joined in different ways. Okay, so we have this little web, so we can use any of the functions in any way depending on the information that we have. Instead of having to go through and find a second step or do a second step, we can find them very simply just with one step. All right, the cos function is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and so that is our ratio that we're going to use. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and just to put it here on the side again so that we remember, I'm going to do the tan is equal to opposite over adjacent. So those are our three functions, sine, cos, and tan, and with those we can find the angle for any right angle triangle that we have.